and it's paused again. We are still here though, so bear with us for any possible glitches that might occur. I am still here. So, hi everybody, did you start a new feed? Yes, okay. So let me get out of this one and go back into the next one. We'll just start over. All good. There we go. Okay. New feed. Sorry, guys. There we go. They'll get it and come on over to this one. Sorry, everybody. Hi again. My name is Donna Gorton, and welcome to my show, Willows Bend. And I am kind of a topic show. So the topic changes every week. We choose it within my Facebook group called the Willows Bend. Anyone who is interested is welcome to come on board and join. It's a drama-free, kind of spiritually minded group. Excuse me, but I'm also all about people learning from each other in there as well. So I have a resource library in there of a variety of different topics, etc. And the feed for some reason is not playing in this one. I'm confused. Okay, so then let's try this again.
If you refresh your screen in the group, I've already shared it out.
Yep, that's what I just did, and the one I had opened up for the second feed was frozen, or just showed the group photos. So we'll get in there, guys. Sorry for any technical difficulties. We should be all good now as far as I'm aware. Trying this one again. Yes, little girl, don't need to bother you there. Okay, yeah, we're still in Willows Bend, Linda. But if anyone ever does have an issue watching in Willows Bend, they can go on YouTube on the Soma Fusion channel. They can go into the Soma Fusion page on Facebook. They can go to online to soma-fusion.com and that they can watch it up there.
Or they can go into my Facebook wall. It's up there on the Soma Fusion page and my Facebook wall right now.
And Katie's wall as well. So we are viewable. If there's ever an issue in Facebook, then you can always bounce around. Hi, James and Brenda. Long time no see. Welcome, guys. So at any rate, sorry for any technical difficulties. So I'm going to start out by doing a circle of protection. Sandy says she always goes into Soma Fusion. Well, that's fine. And no issues. And, you know, sometimes there's just little minor glitch, but Nikki. So with this sage, I cast a circle of protection around everyone in the group viewing and or from within Facebook group or without or listening around the world. May no negativity enter or impact anything or any viewers or in their personal fault. May this energy follow them outside into each individual's personal lives, whether they're watching live or in a replay or listening live or to a replay. And may keep that each individual person safe from any harm, ill will, or negativity or otherwise. And cleanse my cat because she's being feisty right now and attention seeking behind me. Beside me while she's going back and forth. A little bit over to puppy behind me. I can't hurt him, right? And my stones. There we go. All right, guys. We be cleansed and cleared. So I will it, so mote it be. Done. Yeah, it did it to everyone, Natalie. Sorry about that. There was a little technical glitch when we first started. So no worries. It happens sometimes. And Katie is always immediately working on it to get a new feed started or what have you. So always just refresh your page and see if it comes back on and or you see a new feed starting. But either way, it should pop up. So hi, Chris. Someone's apologizing to you, but I'm not sure for what. I missed a comment, I guess. I did fire it up, and this time not on me, Sandy. I didn't burn myself this time or my clothing. So yeah, I had a match head go flying off randomly off of a wooden match I was using in my Friday show, and it landed on my clothes and burned a hole in it, which I was utterly shocked at. Thankfully, it didn't burn me, but ruined my dress. Let's figure it out. Oh yeah, no, other people actually really enjoy this topic. So yeah, and hopefully I'm providing a pretty comprehensive view of everything as always. All right, so let's dive into it. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background information about them, cover some of their more important, bigger cases that like everybody knows about, as well as some maybe lesser ones. There were a few in there in the research that I had never heard of myself before, which I thought I kind of knew most of them. Hi, Erin, and thank you for the happy Mother's Day wishes. Appreciate that. So, and also talking a little bit about their daughter, Judy, who is now an elderly woman herself, which is it seems so strange because in the movies she's still portrayed as being, at oldest, like a teenager. But of course, these are going back in time for the movies. So anyway, let's dive in. So Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, Ed's last name, his actual last name was Miney, Miney, which never heard that before, but Warren was his middle name. So apparently he dropped Miney in his adult life. So Edward Warren Miney was born September 7th, 1926, and he died August 23rd of 2006 at the age of 79. I didn't hear how, but I almost remember some old documentary I'd seen once that I think it talked about him passing away from a heart attack or something like that. And Lorraine Rita Warren, née Moran, was her maiden name. She was born January 31st, 1927, and she passed away April 18th, 2019, at the age of 92, and she died peacefully in her sleep, which is a blessed way to go. So the life and times of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So Ed was self-taught and self-professed demonologist, an author and a lecturer, and Lorraine was a clairvoyant and a light trance medium, which by that it would mean that she would just enter into a light trance in order to be able to see things that spiritual things, whatever beings that might be in the environment, what have you, that she would have to go into a light trance to achieve that. They had one daughter named Judy Warren, and both of them founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, which the acronym for that they would call it is NESPR, NESPR. So it's the oldest paranormal group in existence in New England. So they were the first. They were pioneers in the paranormal field. No matter what anybody chooses to say about them critics-wise, they really opened the door on the topic of the paranormal, and they shine the light in. And no matter if you have a difference of opinions on how they approach things or conducted themselves or not, they at least brought the topic of the paranormal out of the dark and, gave people a chance to not feel crazy for their experiences, and put it forth into the media as well to get media attention to this, to say, hey, this is real and valid. So that was some really important, they're like the mother and father of the paranormal field because of that. So they also went on to write several books about the paranormal and their investigations, and claimed to have investigated over 10,000 cases in their career. And if you'll give me one sec, I'm going to put on my salt lamp in the hopes that it'll help my allergies. As always, I took sinus medicine, and then as always, I'm still kind of on the snuffly side. So there we go. All right. Just taking a glance at the chat. Hi to everybody in chat on my Facebook group. Thank you all for being in there. I appreciate it. So with NESPR, the New England Society for Psychic Research, they worked with a variety of professionals, including researchers, the police, uh, medical doctors, college students, and the clergy with their investigations. I think with as far as having the college students, a lot of them would be kind of mentoring with them and helping them with research, etc. Like in the movies, you had the one guy, I can't remember the gentleman's name in the film, but he was an Asian guy. It's all I know what I remember about him. But he was kind of in every film, and he was like their tech guy, setting up all the equipment and so forth. Forgive me for not remembering his name. Maybe somebody in chat does, but anyway, that would be an example of what they might have college students doing for them, or going out and researching cases for them, etc. Hey, Karen. You have to understand, Aaron, who is ogling over the fact that they had 10,000 cases. This is over the span of really their lifetime. They started this work in their 20s, and she just died at 92. So, that's a long, long time to be doing one job. And granted, her husband crossed over before she did, but still, she continued it to the best of her capabilities. So, they resided in Monroe, Connecticut, in the United States. And Marianne, try refreshing and going back out and coming back in, see if that helps, or go watch over on either Katie's page or Soma Fusion Facebook page. Yes, John Zappis used to help them too as well. And they pretty much always lived in Connecticut all their life. They traveled all over the world, of course, but that was home base to them. There have been skeptics who've come forward stating some of their involvements in various investigations have been either exaggerated or didn't happen. And even some of the people who were primarily involved in the problem, such as family members, they had complaints about how they did stuff and or their involvement during the investigation, or how much they claimed to be involved, which they kind of went on to create their own story, giving their firsthand account of things after the fact. Yeah, a lot of people had, been having issues tonight. We had some glitches when we first started. So if you have trouble within Willows Bend, you can go over to the Soma Fusion page and watch it there, or YouTube channel. Do you really, Stacy? Huh. So one of my sisters said that she lives about 10 to 15 minutes away from John Zappis, which is the nephew. So that's really cool. And I was wondering where they were in relation to where you guys are out there. So let's review some of their well-known cases. Let's start there. And then there's going to be a little bit of backtracking around, and I'm going to kind of intersperse some of their life experiences, their background histories, etc., intermixed with it. So probably one of the biggest, most famous cases, thanks to the movies that was covered, is Annabelle the Doll. And where the Warrens are from about 30 minutes away. Wow. Huh. Very cool. So Annabelle the Doll, according to the Warrens and not Hollywood, two roommates claimed to have their doll, which was actually a Raggedy Ann, not like she was portrayed in the films, which I can see using the doll they used for Hollywood's sake, because obviously that's a whole lot creepier looking than a Raggedy Ann is. But the Raggedy Ann, they said, had been possessed by the spirit of a little girl named Annabelle Higgins. And the roommates had said they made contact with Annabelle spirit during some seance or something. Then they agreed to allow her to stay in the doll, and that they would keep the doll. Hi, Shannon. Yeah, and Alice, welcome. I primarily had Raggedy Ann dolls growing up. I really didn't have many traditional dolls because they cost more, for one, and My mother would always have the Raggedy Anns handmade for me. I still have them, actually. Now, the Warrens came in and, well, they contacted the Warrens after a series of weird events had been happening around their house. And the Warrens took the doll, claiming it to be manipulated by an inhuman spirit, quote unquote, which is a soul being who never has ever been human to start with. I do like the doll they used. They couldn't kill the doll for the kids. They're traumatized kiddos. Exactly. Raggedy Ann bedspread. I never had the bedspread, but I do have, gosh, I think I have 2 Raggedy Ann and Andy that are about 4 feet tall. And then I have 2 or 3 dolls still left from my childhood that are Raggedy Anns. Wow, that's sad that they burned it. Huh, Stacy said that they did an investigation here in Bridgeport on Lindsay Street, and it's about 10 minutes away from where she lives. Very cool. So, forevermore, they had kind of this room that was off of Ed's office, which was really the only space they had in their home to put this thing. And it was any like haunted objects and things that they would encounter on their investigations that the people would be like, I don't want this in my house anymore. Take this with you. One of them being the Annabelle doll. And they had put it into a glass case that was locked and said, you know, it basically had a sign on the front of it saying, at no time open or touch this case. There are reports that she is seen still moving within the case and being repositioned inside of the lock case with nobody touching her. So there's something there. Yeah, a lot of people do not like porcelain dolls. So yeah, and that's a thing for a lot of people, Linda. So, and one of their other more famous cases was the Amityville horror case. The Warrens investigated there in 1975. Now, for those who don't know any background history or perhaps have been kind of hiding under a rock, so to speak, from knowing about the details of it. So James DeFeo had basically shot all of his family to death in the middle of the night in 1972, I believe it was, maybe 73. And they had neighbors reported they didn't hear any gunshots going off, and he used a gunshot, which was very odd. But his story, the guy, Ronnie DeFeo's story, has changed every single time he's interviewed. He tells everything from I was possessed by the devil to my sister did it and talked me into helping her, the whole 9 yards. So, you know, he's kind of out there a bit. My one son creeped out with dolls. Yeah, I have a doll collection too, that from my younger years. So I don't see anything wrong with them. Yeah, a lot of people don't like clowns either because they can't see what's underneath the mask or the makeup. So the Warrens investigated in 1975, and Lorraine told a reporter for the Express Times newspaper that it was haunted and it wasn't a hoax, as far as, because okay, so the thing with the Amityville horror hauntings, so after the DeFeo murders happened, the house got sold, and the people who moved in after them, they moved out within like 30 days, claiming all kinds of paranormal activity happened in there, and they thought that the husband was getting possessed by something evil when he was there. So they end up leaving and pretty much leaving all their belongings behind. Now, that said, the author of the book that made the story popular, his name was Jay, I think Anston was his name. He came out later. Now, he was an attorney, actually. He came out down the road saying that, oh, me and the family, the parents from the family, killed many bottles of wine creating that story, and it's not true, and so forth. Yet the children who were involved in the original the family that bought the house after the murders. They're now, of course, adults. Many have chosen to change their names, stay out of the public eye. One came forward and actually went on to go back and meet with Lorraine as an adult. And he has never, ever been right based on his experiences of the things he faced back then, and had a lot of years of self-medicating and just not ever developing healthy coping skills that he attributed to the haunting. And he said that even though it had been embellished in the movie as to what happened, as Hollywood always does, that in the end, yes, it very much did happen. It was real. It wasn't all just made up and a big hoax. They also, the Warrens captured a very famous photograph of what appeared to be an image of a young boy, which was thought to be the youngest son of the DeFeo children who was killed, kind of peering outside of a doorway, kind of leaning his head over, and he got photographed. That picture has come in under a lot of fire as far as it being a hoax, or them faking the image. Somehow it's been doctored, which there have been other photographic specialists coming forward saying, no, it wasn't, it hasn't been tampered with. This is a real photo. So I think a lot of that falls into the grounds where, you always are going to find those skeptical people who lived their lives in a very closed-minded way to deny the existence of anything paranormal or afterlife happenings that can go on. And they just, because rather than being scared, they stay closed-minded to possibilities. And so with those people, no matter what evidence you show them and come up with, they will not let go of their hold on their opinions about it, and are going to remain skeptical no matter what evidence they're presented with, because that's easier for them to admit that, hey, I was wrong, first of all, and to admit that there may be something there more to it than what they understand, and it scares them. So, hey, let's stay denying the whole thing. How to teddy bears? It is very much so, Linda. Yeah, it is online, Gina, if you happen to get curious about what it looks like. It's just a little boy who's like in a headshot, and he looks like he's kind of leaning out of a doorway. And there was he's about the age that the young son was, or the youngest son that Ronnie DeFeo killed. He killed his parents. He had two, I think he was the oldest. He had two younger sisters who were in their teens, and then the youngest children were in early elementary school age. And he looks like he's probably, between 6 and 8 years old in the picture anyway. And it does look kind of ghostly. So I don't discount it because I wasn't there. So that's my standing on it. Right. There's always going to be naysayers. Well, Aaron, again, it's a matter of hanging on to one's belief system and living in fear of expanding your mind and what you'll find if you do open up. And it goes against a lot of different religious beliefs and so forth. I mean, the Warrens themselves were devout Roman Catholics, and heavily involved in their church, and had a very strong faith in the church as well. So, and even Lorraine says that she was a massive skeptic to start with. There are pictures of the child's spirit and a DeFeo child, and it looks just like him. I've never seen them side-by-side images, Sandy, but I mean, to me, it looks like he would be about the right age for the little boy who got killed. So I believe it anyway. So, and there's a lot of discord regarding whether it was a hoax or not a hoax for the haunting that took place in Amityville. A lot of people who have lived in the house since then have reported no activity. But then again, it's got to get old to have your home be a tourist attraction when you don't want it to be, and for the sake of wanting your own privacy, of denying any haunted happenings, because that's going to keep it going. I find it difficult to believe that if it is genuinely haunted, that it would have ceased and desisted after the fact, you know what I mean? Like after the last family moved out before it was bought again, that it would just go away as a problem. That doesn't seem plausible. So I think that, it's them just not, they're downplaying it or minimizing it. And I mean, they do report that there are always cars driving by their houses. No, I will say that no one family or people have owned that house since for any length of time, more than a couple years. And yet nobody says why they're leaving, or saying, oh my gosh, Jess, it's haunted, I got to get out of here and I'm not staying there any longer. But it has changed hands a huge number of times for a property that size and so forth. So I do believe that the activity has continued myself. But again, anyone who's lived there since has denied it. And again, I get it. So anyway, so Lorraine said it was actually not a hoax and it wasn't a fake, and there was mad activity there. Their version of events were portrayed in the opening of the film from 2016 called The Conjuring Ii, and it kind of shows her having a seance at the Amityville house before going on to investigate the Enfield case over in London, England. And it kind of Hollywood version shows what she was seeing in her visions of what happened in the Amityville, and she kind of took on the role of that Ronnie DeFeo did in going room to room, killing everybody one by one, and actually kind of cocking the gun. She didn't actually leave the table according to the movie, but in what she was seeing play out was that. So anyway, yeah, I think that type of having that level of bloodshed in a home would taint the heart of the house. And I do believe homes have a heart of their own. It's an energy that the home has as being a home. And once something horrific like that happens there, you're never going to fully get rid of the memories, even if there aren't actual spirits still there on the property. There's the stone tape theory, which is the natural materials that make up a home, like wood, stone, etc., organic materials used, that they absorb the energy of a violent crime when it happens there, so that it kind of replays it out. So I think at the very least, there's that there. Aaron says, other paranormal investigators said the land is haunted by upstate Native Americans. Yes. Gina said, I saw especially her in Ireland because it was a baby that haunted people's place, because before they lived there, a baby was murdered, was born out of wedlock about 200 years before. Whoop. It's very sad. Yeah. Sir, you can always stay, just hang out in Willows Ben group, Lisa, and the show will start. Sometimes it can be a couple minutes after 8, but we do get going. So yeah, it's like a residual energy that soaks into the fabric of the house, and that taints the heart of the house. I do believe that it has a heart that each house has its own heart, which can get tainted or corrupted, if you will, by things that take place in its walls. Can't see tonight. What do you mean by you can't see tonight, Nancy? So at the beginning of The Conjuring 2, it does show what Hollywood version of what Lorraine saw in her vision from what she did in their investigation at the Amityville house. And that led to them going on to the Enfield poltergeist case. And the Warrens had investigated this North London case in 1977. The events of this activity was portrayed in the movie The Conjuring 2. So it opens on what she was seeing at Amityville, but the rest of the movie is about the Enfield poltergeist. So although critics say that the Warrens were involved far less than portrayed in the film, can't see to type it. Oh geez, I can't read it or type without my glasses. That's why I keep on for my show, because I'm monitoring chat and my notes too. So I've been lost on my glasses. So they did go on to say that they weren't invited there, that they just showed up there at the Enfield house and wanted to help. They weren't invited, they just kind of showed up and stepped in, but they really weren't not anywhere near as heavily involved as portrayed in the movie. So I don't know, because I wasn't there, nor do I have access to their notes on the case, or any research material they had gathered on their own or otherwise. And for me, that applies to any of their cases. I deeply respect what they accomplished in the field. However, as far as answering any of the critics' claims through the years towards them, I take the same stance that I don't have access to their personal files to know what did or didn't happen. So who am I to sit and judge them on that when I don't have all the information to make a judgment on? So another famous, or sorry, apparently they hadn't even been invited on the case and had just showed up, according to a parapsychologist who was also helping to investigate the Enfield case. His name was Guy Lyon Playfair. I think they were very good people too, and they never meant any harm by anything that they did or didn't do. But, you know, as in every public person who, you know, there are still those closed-minded people out there who will not say one way or the other about anything. And so, you know, they're gonna find something wrong no matter what it is. I would curse the snow as well, Karen. I don't blame you there. Yes, the cases are supposedly locked up in a secret safe someplace. The only people who have access are their daughter and a nephew. I imagine the son-in-law as well, Judy's husband, has access. So I can't say, you know, how much involvement they had in the case or not, or did they, I don't know, was it botch something or not, or was it, did they hoax something up? I don't know. I can't say, but I respect what is known about them. Another famous case they did was Cheyenne Johnson. Now, this story served as the inspiration for the 2021 film, The Conjuring Ii, I think it was, The Devil Made Me Do It. So what happened in this case? So in 1981, Arnie Cheyenne Johnson was accused of killing his landlord, Alan Bono. Now, the Warrens had been called in prior to the murder. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. They were called in prior to the murder of the landlord to deal with the alleged demonic possession of Johnson's fiance's younger brother. So Cheyenne Johnson, the guy who killed the landlord, his fiance's younger brother was allegedly possessed. Oh, yeah? Huh. So they were actually there for the fiance's kid brother, who was supposed to be possessed. And you know, possession is very much a Catholic belief thing. I'm not going to really comment on my feelings regarding that or not, but many people validly, strongly believe in it. The grandson runs the Warren's Legacy Foundation and he helped people with hauntings and more. Yep. Yes, very much so, Annette. Now, here's why this was a landmark case. So at Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's trial, and he tried to plead guilty by reason of demonic possession. Now, this is in 1981. That's something you might, you know, expect to see from 100 years ago, but certainly not in the 1980s. However, it was unsuccessful, and he was found guilty for the murder. Oh, cited exactly, Chris. So the case was described in the book The Devil in Connecticut by Gerald Butler, if anyone's interested in the story behind that. Another famous case they helped on was the Snead house. Huh. Interesting. And they didn't send it back or anything, Gina? She's saying that that they sent a haunted doll to the haunted museum that the Warrens had. So the Snead house, this case was featured in a 1993 book, In a Dark Place, The Story of a True Haunting. Was also featured on Discovery Channel show called A Haunting in 2002. Oh, that's interesting. So in 2009, it was a movie was loosely based on those events by the Warrens' version of events anyway, called A Haunting in Connecticut. Many people got to see that. And of interest to note, several other investigators from these cases found the Warrens telling of their involvement in these cases to be a bit exaggerated and not very valid in their summary of the problem in each case, or doubted Lorraine's accuracy with her gifts. Now, that said, again, it's a very subjective view on stuff, and I don't have access to those to talk to the original people involved or their files, so I'm going to retain any judgment on that. But yes, absolutely, Aaron. And in that case, it was a family that had moved into a home that they hadn't been notified of, was a funeral home from way back when, and a lot of bad things were done to the corpses that they were supposed to be handling. And the son ended up getting to be seemingly possessed and tried committing some pretty bad crimes. They all had a lot of horrible experiences there, etc. The house had an exorcism as well as a cleansing before the activity kind of settled down, is the gist of the Haunting in Connecticut story. So yeah, he is. I agree, Nancy. So another one was the Smurl family haunting in 1986. So this one took place in Pennsylvania, and Jack and Janet Smurl reported numerous supernatural phenomena occurring in their home, including the sounds and smells and apparitions. The Warrens got involved and claimed their home had 4 spirits and a demon who supposedly sexually assaulted the wife, Janet Smurl. The Smurl's version in a paperback book from 1986 was called The Haunted, and a film was also made of the case in a movie called The Haunted also. So the book and the movie were named the same things. Oh, wow. Stacy's saying that house is about 45 minutes away from her. Wow. That'd be interesting just to drive by it and vibe it out, just out of curiosity. So Ed wrote a book, and there was a cemetery in the town that they lived in called the Union Cemetery, and they had conducted a number of paranormal investigations in the cemetery. And Ed wrote a book called Graveyard: True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery. And he described a, quote, white lady ghost who haunts there and claims to have, quote, captured her essence on film. Now, it didn't in my research show the image. I'm sure it's somewhere online. I just hadn't found it, but yeah. Well, Connecticut is a very old state too. So, we're going back to colonist time that they're there. Yes, they are buried there, correct. Yeah, I've seen their grave sites. So they went on to train and be self-described as demonologist. The Warrens went on to train self-described demonologist Dave Considine and their nephew John Zaffis, which we mentioned before. Yeah, there's a lot of haunted states, especially in New England, because they were some of the oldest inhabited areas in the country. So, I mean, that really does make sense. So both Ed and Lorraine were members of the Roman Catholic Church, and they said demonic forces were likely to possess those who lacked faith. And again, being Catholic, they have a belief in demonic possession and demons in general, which I don't view them that way myself, but this isn't a lesson in theology or my beliefs, so I'm not going to get into that tonight. But suffice it to say, it's a very Catholic thing. Right, Mary, up and down the eastern seaboard is the places that got colonized first when white settlers came here. And then before that, of course, was well inhabited by the indigenous people of this country. So yeah, it's ancient inhabitation by humankind. Well, the wars are everywhere, Aaron. The whole country is haunted because of the warring that have taken place within the country. Yes, Zach Baggins is kind of a narcissist. So the Warrens had plenty of critics, including Steve Novella and Perry DeAngelis, who had investigated the Warrens and found that their evidence to be, quote, all blarney. They approached their 1996 investigation as whether supernatural films really were based on a true events. So that's kind of what started their investigation, which led to kind of going on to investigate the Warrens in addition to that. Yeah, I saw a show on Omar Gosh TV where he was trying to investigate there too. And whatever comes through on those devices isn't always the person you think you're talking to. And sometimes it can be conversations they're having amongst themselves, but people pull words out that they can hear and understand, thinking it's pertaining to what they're asking. So it has to be kind of looked at like that. So what they found was a very nice couple, quote unquote. Well, this is their whole quote of what they said based on their investigation. Quote, what we found was a very nice couple, some genuinely sincere people, but absolutely not compelling evidence. So they didn't feel the Warrens would ever cause intentional harm at all to others, but their claims serve to reinforce the delusions and confuse the public on a legitimate scientific methodology. And like in life, people do lie. Well, sure. And there are those people, the thing with investigations. Now, I've been on paranormal investigations myself, and I look at it as I am the tools when I'm there. I don't need voice boxes. I don't need spirit boxes. I don't need Ouija boards. I don't need any of that stuff to communicate. I'm blessed that I'm gifted to be able to do it myself. Nor do I care about whether I catch activity or not. But many people they work so hard to convince science, hey, this stuff is real, when science doesn't give a damn and doesn't look at it. And we should be asking science to prove and work just as hard to prove that it doesn't exist than we do to prove that it does. So reams and reams of people go and try to, get all this evidence on film that they end up doing nothing with. And in those people, I think their motivation for investigating is that they're thrill seekers. And that's what drives them to investigate. They catch a high off of encountering when something happens. But there's a difference between that being your motivation in investigating versus seeing if you're doing it because you want to help. There's a big difference. So that's where I stand on that. Did you really, Mary? Interesting. So for me, it's always from the standpoint of, can I help them? Do they need help? Do they want help? Or do they just want to be left the hell alone? In some cases that is it. They don't want to have to perform. They don't want to have to, be circus performers in their own environment. They just want to be shown respect and be left alone. But those people don't care about that. And they just want to catch the evidence. And again, they get a high off of the adrenaline rush when something happens. So for me, that's the wrong reason to be doing it. But that's my viewpoint on it. So those people who were making these quotes were very much focused on the scientific methodology of investigations and having that reproducible result stuff with evidence. And that's something to keep in mind. How can you get reproducible results from entities that are not in physical form anymore? So it's not like a human being walking into a clinic and saying, hey, I'm going to help you with your trials. So I'll give you feedback as you go along, and you can see my reaction to it and observe it. You can't do that with the paranormal. So that model doesn't really fit, in my opinion, but that's my 2 cents worth on it. It is great to have that gift. Absolutely, Gina. So I look at it as I'm the equipment when I'm on an investigation. I don't need all kinds of proof. Sure, and some people do take steps to protect themselves, others not so much. Other people look at it, as demonic attachments and stuff, which is rare. Yeah, I know, Marianne. That's part of the Circus Performance Act, that I call it, where they're asking the entities to act like they're freaking circus performers. And if someone walked into my house and started demanding things, that I do things for them like that, I would have a few choice words to say back. And it wouldn't involve knocking on wood or opening or closing a door. Lisa said, my mother has been dealing with some sort of spirit that bothers her while she's trying to sleep. We have had house smudged 3 times. The last time was a guy that specializes in Native American. It calmed down a little, but we can't get it to let her alone. It may have a message for her too. There may be a message that, the spirit's trying to give to your mom or whatever. I mean, there's a variety of reasons they may try to make contact. So anyway, these people didn't find the Warrens to be credible anyway. Now, going on, we were talking a minute ago about the Occult Museum and that little room off of Ed's office space that they would put the objects they would collect from the different investigations that they felt would be safer in their hands in a protected environment rather than left out to the wild of the world and possibly harming others. That's what I was just saying, Karen. I think it may have a message. So there is an occult museum, which is now closed. Now, I first thought it might be closed due to Lorraine's death and COVID, but apparently there are zoning regulations, and that's why the museum's closed. But Lorraine ran it with help from her son-in-law, Tony Sparrow, which is her daughter, Judy's husband. But again, it's closed now. So, I don't know that anything is done other than upkeeping the space, but it's not open for public viewing right now. It contains alleged haunted artifacts and objects from around the world and from their many famous investigations. Now, Lorraine made several guest appearances as a consultant and to talk about her experiences in several episodes of the Discovery series, A Haunting. Paranormal State also showed her as a consultant, and both she and Ed appeared on The Scariest Places on Earth. And now we're going to take a couple steps back and go into their early life experiences, kind of what led them into doing what they did for a living. They cleansed the haunted items once a week by a Catholic priest. Yeah, among other things, Aaron. Of course, not all the objects were held by Catholic people, so being blessed by a Catholic priest in that case wouldn't have much good to do for it, but we thought it may be my father who passed. I've connected with him and told him to go to the light and be with the rest of his family. He very well may have, and it may be somebody else. I mean, if it's something you want me to take a look at, you're welcome to private message me. I think it's 2080. Okay, so that's Karen's talking about the government and politicians. So, early life experiences, what kind of led them down to end up on the path that they took with this stuff. So, there we go. Ed grew up actually in a haunted house. When he was 5 years old, he said that he saw an apparition of the family's landlady who had died a year before. Now, I know, at least in the films, it never talks about him having gifts, just simply understanding Lorraine's gifts and how they worked, but not from his own perspective as having gifts. But apparently he was a sensitive, and so I just never heard it spoken of that he did. And later said that when he was soon having soon after the events of seeing the landlady, he was having visitation dreams from dead relatives that he'd never met, including an aunt who would give him messages about his future. I didn't know it was still on, Aaron. So she said, apparently told Ed that he would go on to help many people, or many priests, sorry, but he would not himself become one, which he didn't. Lorraine began having unusual experiences as a child, and she assumed that everyone had them. And many people who have gifts when they're young do actually feel like it's something everybody can do, and it's not really until you enter society and the public school systems, what have you, that you start to see that, no, not everybody has them. So, interesting, Erin. Thank you. So she recounts a story from their book, The Demonologist, it was on Arbor Day at her all-girls private Catholic school, and that she and her classmates had just planted a tree. Oh, wow, interesting. So Linda says that her daughter, Aona, and Ed had the same birthday, but he died 2 weeks before she was born. Interesting. So she said that it was Arbor Day and they were planting a tree at her all-girls Catholic school. And she said, quote, just as soon as they put the sapling in the ground, I saw it as a fully grown tree filled with leaves blowing in the wind. When asked by a nun as to why she was looking up at the sky, she said, quote, I was just looking up into the tree. The nun asked if she was seeing the future, and she admitted, yes, I guess I am. But she said, described it as, the nun wasn't saying it in an abashed way, just kind of questioning, is that what you're seeing? But like being stern about it, but not like it's a bad thing that you do that. So interesting. So as teenagers, Ed and Lorraine met when they were both 16, living in Connecticut, and Ed worked as an usher at the local movie theater that Lorraine and her mom used to frequent. Now, back in the day, they used to have ushers at a movie theater that would walk you to your seat as a courtesy, if you will, to help you find your seat in the dark. But of course, we've done away with that in modern days, but that used to be a service that movie theaters provided. That is hard to do with you, Karen. Soon after, Ed enlisted in the Navy and was off to serve in World War II at age 17 in 1945. He'd only been deployed 4 months when he was sent back home for a 30-day survivor's leave after a ship sunk in the North Atlantic Sea. It was on this break that Ed and Lorraine married and later had their daughter, Judy. Originally, after Ed returned home and was discharged from the Navy on good terms, he and Lorraine used to both really want to be artists and had taken art classes and so forth, and had a big interest in painting. And in my group, the Willows Bend on Facebook, I had posted some original works of art by Ed earlier today to let you guys see the type of stuff he painted. Now, I couldn't find any that were made by Lorraine, but it doesn't mean she didn't make any, but we'll get into that in a minute. So they began by choosing to sketch houses claiming to be haunted that they'd find in their local newspapers. They'd go to the houses and sketch them, then go knock on the doors offering the sketch in exchange for information on the haunting. I have one not far from my house. He did do beautiful work, absolutely. We have a drive-in theater about under an hour from here. They are still in existence. So they'd go to the houses and sketch them and then knock on the doors, offering to give them, the people, the sketch of their homes for exchange for information on the hauntings that they were claiming they had. Now, if it was compelling enough, they would then paint the house and then go on and sell that artwork on average for like $5 a painting, which I don't know how they supported themselves doing that, but it's what the story said anyway. And there was, yeah, they do still have drive-ins, Aaron. They're the ones that I photographed, or I posted the photos of today in the group. A lot of those are actually on sale currently on eBay, of all places. So I don't know what they're going for on eBay, but they were it was an eBay advertisement that I got to screenshot from of the paintings. So interesting. But again, I did search for any artwork that Lorraine had done. Nothing came up, but it doesn't mean there isn't any in existence. It just means that none came up in my search. Yeah, they are still in existence, and 2 movies for about as much as it costs to go to the actual movie theater. It's like by the carful. Yes, that was a really nice one. He painted Sandy in the forest scene. So they spent about 5 years traveling around the United States doing that work of painting haunted houses. And Lorraine originally considered herself to be a skeptic regarding haunted houses and stuff. She didn't believe in, quote, ghosts till after she and Ed began painting those places. I see. Yeah, a lot of young people don't know what drive-ins are anymore. Drive-in movie theaters. So she went on to say, quote, "In the beginning, I was more than a bit weary of people with whom we spoke. I thought they were suffering from an overactive imaginations or were just making things up to get attention." But she began noticing similarities between experiences from people who never met and who were on opposite sides of the country. She then started becoming a believer. Now we're up to 1952, and the Warrens founded their New England Society for Psychic Research, NESPR, and created the Occult Museum. Like I said, this adjoined Ed's office in their Monroe, Connecticut home. And to quiet her skeptics, Lorraine agreed to be tested by a Dr. Thelma Moss, who apparently had once been an actress, but went on to become a psychologist and a parapsychologist. Now, parapsychologists tend to study paranormal events, but from a not a psychological standpoint, but more of a scientific viewpoint. They try to find logical explanations for why something's happening versus automatically attributing it to an entity occupying a space. So I first saw Disney's Peter Pan and I want to say Cinderella maybe at the drive-in in the 70s. Ooh, The Exorcist would have been good at the drive-in. So she did agree to be formally tested for her gifts, and the Dr. Thelma Moss found Lorraine's gifts to be, quote, far above average. Ed and Lorraine never charged for their investigations and instead earned a living by guest lecturing at colleges and licensing the rights to their stories for film, TV, and book projects. Which one, Marianne? She thinks she cried so bad during the movie at drive-in. So they thought of themselves first and foremost as educators because of the growing interest in the late 1960s and seeing people who were affected by, quote, dark phenomena. Now, they actually hoped to discourage people from exploring the occult to begin with, so kind of staying away from it. Not a lot of colleges teach parapsychology. I want to take it so bad, but I still probably will take it. I love being a psychologist. There are other courses about not necessarily becoming a parapsychologist, but because that's more of a specialty once you get your psychologist degree. And then, they do offer courses on different paranormal topics, though. The Exorcist, yeah, that was a good movie, classic. So, okay, so you guys just talking about movies. Other famous cases that they investigated. Now, there was the first Conjuring movie was based on a haunting that the Perron family was having. And this home and family, again, it was the basis of the movie. So things were loosely based on events. Now, Andrea Perron is really, really big in the field of paranormal, extraterrestrials, and so forth. And she's written 2 books, The House of Darkness, House of Light, volumes 1 and 2, based on the actual family's experiences within that home, not Hollywood's version. It was really important to her to tell things from their perspective versus the Hollywood's version of it only. She was grateful that that Hollywood did the film, but she said they got more wrong than they got right. And she had some words about Ed and Lorraine's actual involvement in it and what happened versus what the movie portrayed them to be doing. Yep, I've seen her too, and I've had some private conversations with her as well, Sandy. She's a very nice lady, yes, to both you, Sandys. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. So, Andrea Perron later wrote in her books, House of Darkness and House of Light, volumes 1 and 2, that the Warrens' involvement was not as big as the film indicated. She said that they did investigate the basement and that Lorraine did hold a seance there in the home, whereby Andrea felt led to the actual possession of her mother. She said that they then also collected several journals, etc., and that they, after requesting them return several times, they still to this day have not received their back again. Andrea said after her mother's levitation, which did actually happen, she said her father was so outraged he essentially threw them out of the house, thus ending their involvement after one visit. So it wasn't something like it was shown in the movie where it just kept getting, they were heavily involved and stayed with the family for a while. Yes, she was involved with aliens and has had several alien experiences on the property, and finally kind of came out of the closet, so to speak, to discuss her experiences after she put her books out. So, so she said that, it really was not how, the movie portrayed Ed and Lorraine going in there multiple times, multiple days, and staying with the family, and several overnight times, collecting all kinds of mad evidence, and that they were really responsible for ending her mother's possession and so forth, and kind of saved the day, which wasn't actually what happened. Her father threw them out he felt that they incited the possession to take place. It was that they kind of caused it to happen by making connection and angering the spirits, kicked them out, and that ended their involvement. But to this day, they still never received back all their materials that the Warrens had taken at the time as part of their investigation, which I kind of disagree with that, but I don't think that they were giving them to them with the awareness that it was then becoming their property. No worries in that. Welcome in, Ramona. I just saw that you were messaging me. I have my messages shut off when I'm on my show, but saw that you were, but I didn't see what you said because I didn't want to blank out my screen. But yeah, I always start 8 p.m. Eastern time for all my shows. So another case that they were involved in was the Donovan family. So this one took place in the early 1970s, and Ed and Lorraine met the family and witnessed loud poundings coming from inside the walls, water running blood red, and, quote, beast-like noises echoing through the home. The youngest daughter did admit to using a Ouija board, unaware that there are rules to using a Ouija board for safety's sake. Since she didn't know, she didn't follow them. The Warrens felt this invited a demon into their home. Remember, they were Roman Catholics, so do view things from that perspective. So the Warrens called in a priest for an exorcism, and slowly the activity subsided. Now, this one I'd never heard of at all before of them being involved in, but found it an interesting one. It was the demonic werewolf in London. There was a gentleman by the name of Bill Ramsey who was considered, quote, living proof that werewolves do exist. He remembers a childhood event where he felt, quote, strange before a powerful rage coming over him, and he, in his rage, uprooted an entire fence. Now, it doesn't say what kind of a fence it was, but yeah, oh, absolutely, Aaron, I agree. But there's not as many as people tend to think there are. You know, they're not creeping around every single corner. Most spirits are people too, and that's it. So he claims that as an adult, he'd witnessed his face transforming into a wolf and his hands twisting into claws. Ed and Lorraine still shaking the indoctrination into the Roman Catholic. I don't believe that anyone ever truly gets rid of their foundation of beliefs, no matter what they are, not 100%. Ed and Lorraine got involved after London police reported being attacked by this Bill Ramsey guy. Ed stated, quote, this was the first case of lycanthropy we had ever come across. I interviewed police officers that were actually attacked by this man. Now, he stands about 5'7" and weighs about 150 pounds, but he would take some of these police who were well over 6 feet tall and throw them around like they were kindling wood, end quote. Oh, very much so. You know, I mean, your foundation of beliefs are given to you when your personality is forming in the first 5 years of your life, and they coincide. So that's why you don't ever completely get away from your foundation of beliefs if you wanted to. So in 1989, the Warrens convinced Bill Ramsey to come to their church in Connecticut and undergo an exorcism. Now, during the event, Ramsey's face contorted and he launched at the exorcist. Then all was calm and the exorcism was a success. Since then, no more incidences were reported. Now, with this case, with the mental health disorder lycanthropy, interestingly, it is not a matter of turning into a wolf, it's a belief that you do. So that makes me wonder, because most exorcisms reportedly take more than one time to happen in order to finish it. Like they got to redo it again. And the person has to agree to it. And since he willingly went all the way from London to Connecticut to have this done and attended it, that it only happened once, or took one time to rid him of this issue, does lead me to believe it very well could have been more of a mental health issue than something that was a physical reality of him turning into a werewolf. So, well, your bloodline is not your foundation of beliefs, though. So, let me see. Many feel that the Warrens are fakes and frauds, and that those who support them found them the real deal, and because of, or many that do find them to be the real deal, hi Stacia, are actually devout Christians. And so again, it's that joint view of how they view things, of what is behind the hauntings and so forth. And a devout Christian very well would see it the same way, and that those would be the main supporters of them. Some claim that the only information one has to go on concerning a haunting is the Warrens say so. For example, the Annabelle Doll, before his passing, Ed warned the museum visitors that the last man to mock Annabelle ended up dying in a motorcycle crash, but never provided a name of the individual or evidence of said crash, like no newspaper clippings, whatever, to prove his claim. Which, I don't know if there is that in existence or not, or if it would be just said that, okay, so he happened to visit the museum and he happened to die in a motorcycle crash. But in connecting the two, well, that would be really a matter of opinion, not so much saying it was Annabelle's fault or Annabelle caused the accident. So, I could, that to me would be a bit of a stretch. So had he provided a name or the newspaper article, well, that still wouldn't prove it came from the haunting in Connecticut of the Snead family was thought most of the issues, this is by naysayers of theirs, was thought that most of the issues were due to drug and alcohol addictions throughout the family, and that was the real root cause of the alleged haunting that took place there. Now, I'm not denying that those did exist within the family structure, but would that be the root cause of seeing and experiencing all those things? No, I don't think so. The Devil Made Me Do It case. So in 2007, Carl Glatzel, David the murderer's older brother, now you're with me on that one? Now, this was the one where the Cheyenne Johnson case was the Devil Made Me Do It case, and that's what this is referencing. So the murderer's older brother, so the guy, Johnson's oldest brother, he tried to sue Lorraine for unspecified damages. And in the suit was Gerard Brittles, who was the author of the book for that case, claiming that his family were manipulated by Lorraine. Now, and anytime I've ever seen any interview by Lorraine or otherwise, she didn't have a manipulative bone in her body. She was such a gentle woman that, from everything I've seen of her personality in interviews, that I don't see that as being reality-based statement, but that's my own opinion of that one. The Enfield case, had a high number of skeptics claiming that 11-year-old Janet learned ventriloquism to be able to throw and change her voice like she did. People thought that the girls were playing pranks. This made it hard as the case received a lot of publicity back in the 70s when it was supposed to be taking place. Exactly, Linda. Like, I don't see her being manipulative of anyone. So, that was a lot of the claims of the Enfield haunting was that the girls were making it all up and just trying to vie for attention, and that this 11-year-old learned ventriloquism to throw her voice basically in order to have it sound like she was channeling the negative spirit of the house. That in the movie it was portrayed as being the old man who had died in the house, that she learned how to do that. And I remember, like, and I did read about this prior to the movie, where one of the tests of that was they had the little girl take a swallow of water in her mouth and hold it in her mouth whilst that voice came through, in order to demonstrate that she wasn't, making it up or whatever. So obviously, had she been trying to talk with the mouth full of water, it would have spilled everywhere, and that didn't happen. So there goes that. She does have many interviews out there. Right, Karen? Talented child. Now, she, as an adult, the Janet, who was the main focus of the haunting, age 45, did admit in 2015 that she and her sister did fake some of it, about 2% of it to be precise. But me being me, has to say, okay, so what about the other 98% then? Obviously, there had to be something with it, or else, like, faking only 2% is really a small portion of it, to be sure. So, yes, that case got thrown out, Gina. And the guy who was originally claiming the devil made him do it as a defense he was still found guilty. And as far as the werewolf case goes, I still say Lorraine is the reason I have my sanity and helped me not care what people thought of me and my gifts. Hey, no, like I said, I think that she was from everything I've seen of her. No, I didn't know her personally, but that she seemed like she was a very kind, gentle woman who never would harm a fly if given the chance to. Of course, we don't know people behind closed doors, but really, she didn't come across that way. So now in the werewolf case, an unknown writer from read my writing. I think it says Cricus Review states how carefully the case was researched by the Warrens, but they forgot to include the documentation saying how it had been researched out. Exactly, Aaron. Most complain that for any of their cases that the Warrens don't ever produce any of the evidence that they claim to have held. Ed refused to give up his tapes of evidence to be backing up their claims on these cases, and that Ed claimed to be involved in scientific research endeavors, yet he's refusing to turn over any evidence of him and all these tapes that he would have. Because I guess that was a reality to where he would, like as shown in the movies, he would sit down at a table and do taped interviews of the people involved to hear their side of the story. So, like the idea that, he didn't want to turn those over. Well, perhaps he was afraid of not getting the tapes back. I mean, I don't know. I, again, don't have access to all that stuff. And so because of that, I withhold judgment on that, if that makes sense. Now, let's go on to, sounds like an invasion of privacy, why he didn't reveal it for the other person's well-being. Exactly, Gina. And that could be one of the reasons. And also feeling like, hey, I don't have anything I got to prove to you. And I can respect that as well, because for me, being a gifted individual, for those who aren't familiar with me, I am a psychic medium. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I fully reside and trust in my gifts. I know what I'm capable of doing. So if I get a naysayer coming up demanding I prove to them that I'm valid, you know what? I don't need to prove anything to anybody at this point. And if someone is looking for that, they have only to talk to people I've given readings to and whatever to say, yeah, she's valid. I don't have to stand on my head and perform tricks to show people that I am and can do what I say I can do. So by that token, I could see anybody taking that stance of being like, I don't have anything I got to prove to you. I do what I do and I am what I say I am. So no, you can't have my tapes or my documentation because I don't have anything I got to prove to you that I'm valid. The fact remains I was involved. I did this. So there it is. So, oh, and not even just trolls, Aaron, like people, once in a while will come into one of my shows and be like, tell me one valid thing about me that you wouldn't have any way of knowing. And, they're looking for a free reading, which, okay. And I give them that. And then they're still like, well, anybody can know that. Tell me something more. Well, dude, you're wanting a full blown reading out of me for proving myself to a stranger who doesn't care one way or the other. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to perform for you or waste my time. So I don't have anything to prove to anybody in that way. So I could see that being perhaps Ed's point of view with that. And I'm not saying that was his motivation, just saying a possible motivation for it. So now let's go on to the topic of their daughter, Judy Sparrow. Now, Judy reports that she lived with her grandparents the majority of time while her parents were traveling, and only spent a brief time in their house. Some people are just jerks, absolutely. Yeah. I trust my gifts. I've been using them long enough that I don't need to demonstrate to anybody. Yeah, no, I don't tolerate trolls in my shows. In fact, that's been my newest thing of saying, like, in the vein of a troll is, who's that trip-trapping on my bridge? Like the kid story. Yeah, I'm not gonna put up with it. So Judy said that she grew up mainly living with her grandparents and really spent very little time in their house because she was terrified of it. She says, quote, I was terrified there in their house, so I just didn't sleep there, she recalled. I couldn't sleep in the room by myself. And I was young, very young. Now, she said that when the Annabelle doll came home, she was absolutely terrified of that thing. And she couldn't, even to this day, can't tolerate going near it because it scares her to death. That it's fine for her husband to go do it, but she doesn't want any part of it. That her mother said, just close your eyes and don't acknowledge it and pretend it's not there. And to this day, and don't ever look it in the eyes. And she said, to this day, I will not look that doll in the eyes. Information mom gets, she wouldn't know that on her own. Right. Monty Python, the Holy Grail, had that troll at the bridge and ended up being cussed out near himself. That was hilarious. I have seen the Holy Grail, but not in many years. But there is a children's book that, who's that trapping on my bridge? Yes, the killer rabbit part was a classic Monty Python skit, correct. So Judy is now a 70-year-old woman. And she says that the stories her father told her scared her so much that she has a hard time immersing herself in their more serious investigations. She reports that she's terrified of the Annabelle doll. And when she first brought her husband, Tony, home, he had the tour of the museum without her because she was too scared to be in there. She does report that the doll sometimes changes position within the locked case that her parents put it in, though. Now, interestingly, that was the first picture I'd ever seen of her as a grown woman, never mind elderly woman now. Her features are very much like Lorraine's, but her face is more shaped like her father's. But I just found that interesting that that's how she turned out looking like. She definitely, you see Lorraine a lot in her. That's the one movie that absolutely scared me and creeped out of me. Right. It does a lot of people. Billy Goat Scruff. Yes. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. The 3 Billy Goat Scruff. Who's that trapping on my bridge? I used to, of course, do the voices of that. My daughter when she was little. So she made her husband, Tony, tour the museum himself, or with her parents or whatever, when she first brought him home to meet her parents because she was too scared to go in. So I guess it's a matter of opinion what one thinks about the validity of the Warrens' gifts or even their investigations. Now, personally, I think that we, at the very least, owe them respect for bringing the topic of the paranormal into the light and into people's homes as a topic of conversation, rather than being spoken about behind, hushed hands and whispered tones out of fear of ridicule or being thought crazy or whatever. I think that we owe them that. So again, anybody who's become a public figure, especially in this field, has to face ridicule and skepticism. It's part of the game, unfortunately. So regardless, again, I don't have access to their records. I wasn't there. So I reserve my judgment because of that, pertaining to, my impressions on them, nor have I ever met them in person, obviously. So but I do have nothing but respect for them as being pioneers to, put on the motion sensor light on the topic of the paranormal, essentially. And that's what they did for us. So I respect that the most, whatever their activities were or weren't. But I do think that that contribution to the paranormal world should never be forgotten about, because they're now part of the history of paranormal investigations. They are essentially the mother and father of paranormal investigations. That's why psychics say having abilities are a gift and a curse. To a degree, yes. I mean, there are those that their own gifts scare them. But yes, you have to, if you're going to go public with having gifts, then you have to be willing to handle the skeptics out there, who come at you because of their own belief systems, and being very closed-minded themselves, that they are not willing to consider possibilities. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier in the show, Nancy, that they worked for free. They never charged anybody for their investigations, or they made their money out of being guest lecturers on college campuses, from the rights to their books and their movies and stuff. So other than that, yeah, they never charged anybody to help them. So, and that's something that's important to myself as well when I'm doing like a house clearing or a house cleansing for somebody. I say, if you're able to make a donation, great, but if not, that's okay too. I'm still willing to help. And people seem surprised by that. And I think if someone is setting a price on it, then maybe one should step back and kind of look at that, because I don't think one can really put a price on it. At least I have a hard time thinking of it in those terms, because you don't know what you're going to encounter until you're in there to know, like, how do you put a price on it? So I have a hard time with that aspect of it. Not that I don't think people should be compensated for work they're doing, etc. But again, I don't think, what do you say, $50 per human spirit you cross over and 15 for each interdimensional? I mean, come on. You can't really put a price tag on that in a logical way. So I don't, but it's an individual choice. But those that do, I think, deserve to be looked at a little bit closer. Like, what is your motivation for doing so? And as an aside, those that I have heard of who do charge people to come in and do a house cleansing or remote viewing, whatever, the things that they tend to put forward as a cause for the haunting and or do about it, I've not been impressed by results. I will say that. Or they simply instill more fear in the people, not helping set their minds at ease by educating them, which to me, they're paying for that. I mean, that's not right. Can't put a price on someone's sanity. That's how I look at it. Absolutely. Exactly, Stacey. 50 for the first demon, 25 for the additional, like I read recently about somebody who had paid for a psychic to come into their home. And to me, it seemed quite obvious why or who was occupying the home, but to pay someone to do that. And then the person didn't help them. If anything, they scared them more about one area of unknown activity and what's behind it in their basement, and wouldn't touch it. And I'm like, and you paid them to do this, to scare you more, and in the end not do anything to help? I mean, that's silly. Some of the big shot psychics on TV charge a fortune. Chip Coffee. Yeah, I mean, I find Chip Coffee to be very valid, but yes, he's pricey. Definitely. And yes, you have a right to a living, and it's a universal law that you are entitled to compensation for services provided in the forms of gifts, blessings, or monetary gain. Now, that said, again, how do you price that though? No matter how I've turned it over in my head, now I can set a set price for, for a private reading with somebody, but for going into and doing a remote view in their house when I don't know what I'm going to encounter or exactly how I'm going to handle it till I get in there, well, I can't say, okay, that'll be $200 for that when I don't know. So I'll charge for that stuff. I'll cleanse your house and tell you you're pretty for tacos. Give Karen tacos and tequila. She's good. Like, I don't see how one can set a price for that. But no, they never charged to go into people's homes to help them, which is, impressive. If they actually did help on 10,000 cases, That's a lot of free work and traveling on their own dollar to get there and so forth. So that's more than most paranormal investigative teams do nowadays to try to help. It's not within a 50-mile radius of their house, they don't bother. They were traveling across country to get to places, and in some cases around the world. So, big difference there. And that was coming out of their own pockets. So, that's a big sacrifice of time, energy, money, time away from their daughter, all of those things. So I leave it to each individual who is watching and or listening to the show to decide for yourselves what you think of them. I gave you the critics' disputes about them. I gave you my own personal views and others' views on the validity of them, in addition to what you may have encountered on your own in your lifetime of exposure to them in various interviews, what have you. Make up your own minds, but at the very least, I think they should be respected for being the mother and father of the paranormal investigating community, because they are what brought it all together into the light. And instead of keeping it in the dark behind whispered hands about, oh my gosh, I experienced this, and we don't talk about that conversation. Now more people than ever believe in this stuff rather than deny its existence, which is another reason why I give little credence to those who are close-minded about it, because guess what? You're now outnumbered, and so your own views don't mean a lot to me at that point. No offense, but I wish you well, but I don't share those views. Is how I look at that. So love them or hate them, I say respect them. Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying gods or the supernatural, Aaron, but they are the mother and father of the paranormal world. And now they're on the other side. So, I mean, it must have been an interesting transition for them after having these lifetimes here of experiences and then going over to the other side and meeting some of those that they maybe interacted with here, and what kind of comparing notes or whatever. So, well, Gina, that's what she's saying. She'll clean your house and tell you you're pretty in exchange for you giving her tacos. So you wouldn't have to hire a maid first for Karen. She'll do it for you. So let's vote on topics for next week and then go from there. So the next Willows Bend is going to be May 17th. And I hard to believe we're going to be in the middle of May already. Isn't that crazy? Episode 131. And yes, I know I say that every week, because the further I go on my spiritual path, I can understand where they say that time becomes more fluid, because it totally has for me until I am forced to pay attention to it. Then I'm like, really? It's that day of the week? Or no, it's that date already? And I can't let it, holy cow, when did that happen? Just goes by me. So anyway, for topics for next week, we have phone calls from the dead. I know a wonderful place to get tacos and a great way of us consuming a lot of tequila. I hope I don't get too sick. I'm sure you have a remedy. That's your path, Karen. So you have phone calls for the dead, Guge, which was a Tibetan Buddhist kingdom that just disappeared. And if there are, by the way, I'll throw out there too, if there are anybody in the listening audience around the world who is interested in a specific topic, feel free to message me on Facebook Messenger. I can be reached at Donna Hawk, and then all one word. Well, my name is printed on the bottom. There you go. Hawk who walks the land, Gorton. So copy that down. You can get me through Soma Fusion as well. So I'm reachable, and give me your shout out for what topic you'd like. So the topics for next week are phone calls from the dead, Guge, which is a Tibetan Buddhist kingdom which disappeared, Derinkuyu, which is an underground city in Cappadocia, Turkey, which kind of leads into a next topic as far as just as a general covering all of them, underground cave cities that have been found, deserted of course, but that can fit, upwards to 50,000 people under them. Creepy pastas, urban legends, or reptilian aliens. So phone calls from the dead, Gugay, which was a Tibet Buddhist kingdom that disappeared, Derinkuyu, an underground city in Cappadocia, Turkey, or underground cave cities in general that exist that have been found and can't be explained, creepypastas, urban legends, or reptilian aliens. Okay, so Sandy 1 is saying underground cities. Aaron's saying urban legends. Here, let me see. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay, never mind. I'll do it this way. I unfortunately couldn't fit all the topics on one page. Stacy says they all sound really interesting. And that says phone calls from a dead. Deb says reptilian, and Natalie says creepypasta, which are both on the back page, so that works. Karen and Mary Ann and Mary all say underground cities. So let's switch up here. So 1, 2, 3. Stacia says a Tibetan disappearance. Gotcha, lady. Underground cities, says Linda. So we have phone calls from the dead, Gugay, which is a Tibet Buddhist kingdom that disappeared, Derinkuyu, an underground city in Cappadocia, Turkey, underground cave cities in general, creepypastas, urban legends, or reptilian aliens. Sandy 2 says Tibetan disappearance. Gotcha. Stacy says the Tibet, so the Gugay. Oh, good. I'm having a hard time deciding. Chris says the Tibet. Okay. Well, eventually they usually all get covered. I mean, if something doesn't get voted on for a few weeks in a row, I drop it off the list and nobody seems to even notice anyway. So, but overall, those that do get votes get covered eventually. That's the only time I drop a topic is if it doesn't get votes, more than once, like say 3 weeks in a row, nobody votes on one topic. Yeah, I'll ditch it. And nobody notices I've dropped it off the list anyway. So, So what say you, Miss Gina? Want to go with phone calls from a dead because it reminds me of the Twilight Zone. Okay. All right. So based on that, by 1, is that right? Yeah. All right. Do we have everybody's vote so far? Before I announce the winners, there's 2, 6, 5, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 14 votes and there are 18 people watching. A good episode of Twilight Zone, yeah. So 4 people have not voted who are watching the show, basically. I mean, if that's all who are going to vote, then I will go ahead and call it. I don't know why my phone was just vibrating. Probably nothing major to worry about. All right, so then we will say, I don't think I did, Nancy. What was your vote, love? Your parents usually pick which you pick. That they do, Stace. Yeah, I noticed that your dad and mom were watching at the very beginning, but then haven't heard from them since. So I did see you vote, Deb. I was surprised when I saw that, actually. Nancy says aliens. I did not get yours, Nancy, but I will add it on there just so you are present and accounted for. Okay, so that tips the scales a little bit with Stace's parents added in. So it looks like by 1 vote, Gugay, which is the Tibet Buddhist kingdom that disappeared, will be next week. Second runner-up was the underground cities. And that is one of the theories surrounding them too. Oh, Brenda and James McManus are her parents. Her family's kind of adopted me, Gina. So when they come to the shows. So Stacy's my sister, Amanda's my sister, Faith's my sister, and then their mom and dad. You know, it's an adopted thing. With past life connections, so soul family. But they don't tend to say a lot during the show anyway, unless asked. Yes. Although he doesn't go by Dr. James with his profile name, but yes, he is a retired doctor. But a very cool one, because he understands the integration of the mind, body, and spirit connection, and it's not just one. You can't just treat the mind without also dealing with the other things too. So I'm sure he was a phenomenal doctor because of that. Can I be adopted? Well, you kind of already have, Annette, because you're part of the Willows Ben family, so you have been adopted. I tell people that all the time, that, you know, you'll get out of the group what you put into it. I do as much as I can, but people, you know, are going to interact as much as they want, attend the shows and be in chat if they're interested in that, or, you know, use the resource library, contribute to it, whatever, and form the connections or attend the book group and all that stuff. So yeah, you're active in the group, so you are already part of the Willows Ben family and have been adopted, girl. It's a thing. We've made our own family in here. That's the way that works. All right, so the next Willows Ben will be Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, which can be viewed in here, my Facebook Willows Ben group, or broadcast globally by Soma Fusion Network, which is also on Facebook, YouTube, all social media platforms. We're everywhere. You can always find us everywhere. So that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Monday night. And I also do a book group here in Willows Bend on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We do kind of a video messenger call thing for it. One does not have to own a book to attend it. I have the books and I'm reading them and pausing in between to help explain perhaps a difficult concept, ask about questions. We explore the topics of the book, etc., which can sometimes go a little late, but you know, exactly, we are a soul family. So that's the book group is at Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that'll be this Wednesday on the 12th. And we're going to be starting a new book this week, the Seth material. And I have a whole stack of them over there. So we'll be lined up for a while, guys. And then I have a Facebook page called Beyond the Veil, where I do live readings Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time in there. The Seth material would be the next one in line, Sandy, and then go on from there. So I made a post in the book group chat earlier tonight, no, this afternoon, showing the new books that came in today. I got 3 of them in. So yeah. Oh, H.H. Holmes is a topic, isn't it, Linda? Well, I'm glad you made it. It was nice to see you. It's been a good long hot minute since you made a show. So it was great having you here, lady. And I love you for coming. Thank you all. So yeah, I think I put it out there asking for people's opinions on which book to do next. So, but you don't have to have the book, Linda, if you want to attend. I have them here and I read them. I mean, you saw that when in the couple that you did attend, so you don't have to have it in order to, you know, experience it. We have several of them. I just got in the coming of, no, sorry, not the Seth material, the coming of Seth, I think is what, is it the coming of Seth that we're doing next? I don't know. I have a stack of them over here. The coming of Seth, the nature of reality, the nature of the psyche. Get a bunch of them anyway. So we're covered for a while on the book sections. Thank you guys. Love you too, Annette. So thank you all for coming and hanging out. You are, each and every one of you, are much appreciated. And I don't know if Katie is listening in or not.
I'm here.
Oh, you are here. The Seth Materials hasn't gotten here yet, Stace. So depending on whether that's here, whatever was first before the Seth Speaks book that we just got done on is what we're doing. So that's how that's going to work. So go look at Facebook chat for the book group. So anyways, love to everybody. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And I will see you Wednesday night in the book group. And otherwise, have a wonderful time. Thank you for listening to all our listeners as well. And again, you can always find us at somafusion.com. You can find us on the Soma Fusion channel on YouTube. We're on Facebook as well. We're kind of everywhere. So thank you all who are listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you guys next week for Willows Bend. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Good night.